Yes. What's up, witches? Welcome back to another episode of the BetterWitch podcast, where we have candid conversations with real life practitioners and professionals because when we know better, we witch better. We're broadcasting live right now, of course, from Witchwork, New York City's only co working space for witches. I'm your host, Allie Kravitz, aka Bronx Witch, and I am the founder of Witchwork and the CEO of Better Witch Coaching. You can tune in to live tapings of the show from my YouTube channel, Better Witch Coaching and Podcast. Today's guest co host is Mel. Mel Erica is a gifted spiritual content creator who radiates enthusiasm through her digital platforms. With a unique blend of spirituality and creativity, she crafts engaging content that resonates deeply with her audience. Through the power of music and her innate talent, Mel shares insightful and encouraging videos, fostering a soulful community connection. Beyond her digital presence, Mel is a dedicated full time mother and a passionate advocate for body positivity, spiritual alignment, and wellness. Her commitment to nurturing both her family and her community reflects her profound dedication to holistic living. You can learn more about Mel on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Erica's Intuition _. Welcome, Mel. It is so great to have you.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, hello to my friend. Are you familiar with this term?
Yeah, it was like a trending term for a while. It was like hashtag trend, and then it left. I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, I'm lucky I caught the wave because I literally just saw somebody like mention it in passing, and I didn't know it was a thing. And I was like, "Is that what we're calling it now?" Because it's so perfect.
It was
Um,
nice, yeah. And then I was like, maybe it's just on my side it disappeared, but I like built my platform on like trending. Like I was like, hey everyone, let's be friends, let's be friends.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. And we have so many things that I want to talk to you specifically about, but I thought that was one thing that I wanted to mention because I've been really telling my better witches to take advantage of it. I feel like it's like one of those like, final frontier type things where when something's new and it hasn't been touched too much, that it's really good. And for folks that are looking to make like genuine connections, whether you're looking for just folks who are spiritual, or you are entrepreneurial and you're looking for clients or collaborations, I feel like threads is really the place to be.
I agree.
I Yeah, I find that I've been telling people that Instagram is for like watchers and threads is for doers. Like on
Yeah,
Instagram, everybody just wants to watch
yeah,
you, and it's kind of like they're just waiting to see how long it takes before like you mess something up before they decide to like rock with you, basically. Like just a bunch of
yeah.
like haters in the making, but like just, biding their time. Whereas threads is a community of people that really are trying to get things done and are not interested in like they don't care whether or not you have the big following or like really well edited reels and stuff like that. It's just like, what are you looking for? What are you offering? What are you doing? How can I be a part of it? And so you've been finding it to be the same.
Yeah, actually, so ironically, my Threads platform is larger than my Instagram platform, and Threads
Wow.
is an extension of Instagram. so,
Mhm.
so I am the prime example of what you're talking about, like people wanting to watch me but not stick around on Instagram, and then people joining and building community with me on Threads, and engaging in real life. Not Instagram is not real life content, but I feel like Instagram is meant to be consumed and Threads isn't. Threads is
Mhm.
meant to be communicative, it's meant to be collaborative. It's meant to also be like a safe space for strangers. Like the term thread is important because everyone, ooh, sorry.
No, you're good.
So because everyone basically feels like they are friends over there. Where on Instagram, it's like you're a follower and
Right.
you're like tuned into what people are about to share in terms of like, for consumption to watch it. And Threads is like we are communicating, we are giving our opinions, we are
Mhm.
sharing, we're saying the quiet parts out loud. We're standing up for things, and then the conversations can extend anywhere,
Yeah.
right? Whereas on Instagram, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, our videos cannot be shown everywhere, right?
No.
Um,
No,
yeah,
and you don't want to deviate too much from like what might be your typical content or whatever, because it can, fuck with the
Yeah.
algorithm and all that good stuff. And I don't find that to be the case on Threads. Like I can post something random, like, I had a dream the
Mhm.
other day that Dochi and I were hanging out, which like Dochi called me. But like for whatever reason, she was in my dream and we were just like chilling, like having sandwiches and like talking. And I just like randomly posted about that. My algorithm was not suddenly filled with Dochi stuff. Like it was not confusing. It was not weird at all. Like it didn't change things. I'm still mostly just seeing like
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, spiritual practitioners, Black people in business, like the things that I've kind of taught it that I like.
Yeah, well, what really was helpful for me is I share everything on my Threads account, and I have my Instagram bio like linked, and I just recently changed it
Mm,
because I feel like more people come on my Threads account to align with what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and it's like I always teach in every type of content that I do or empower. And Threads is like really a space where it's like, oh, she's doing this, like, but what is like, how is she doing it? What is the reason for this? Or I agree with this too. Like, and then Instagram is like, oh, that's cool. I like that. I like the vibe. I'll sit through that. Whereas like Threads is like, oh, so I posted a lot of spiritual dream messages on Threads while still posting myself, right?
mhm,
Like as a confident, body positive, and just healthy, happy, plus size woman, like, and
mhm,
happy to, empower other women in general and other plus size women to say, hey, it's okay for me to be happy too. It's okay for me to showcase my body in whatever way I feel safe. There's nothing wrong with that and be proud of it. And at the same time, I'm like, here's this dream that I had. And this dream comes from a spiritual place, and people didn't even question. They're like, okay, right. Like, I understand. I think that's for me. And they just stayed. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, so people don't care if I'm labeled here. And I still have my bio, but I changed it recently to be more in tune with the things I'm saying over there, opposed to like Instagram, like being watched. Um, and it's important for me to be a no niche creative, even though
mhm,
I have like sub niches, right?
mhm,
So I'm a tarot reader on TikTok, right?
mhm,
And I do musical tarot. And musical tarot is a way that I connect with my audience through
mhm.
song and tarot readings, tarot cards. And I am a spiritually gifted woman. I am clairaudient. I am an empath, and I'm also clairvoyant through dreams, right?
Mhm.
So I have these gifts, but I decide to share them in a way that's digestible to the public, right? And so what's a language that's uniform? Music, right?
Yeah.
What's something that speaks to all of us, no matter who we are, where we're from, and what we look like? Music. So it aligns with body positivity because I am proud to be who I am. I'm proud. I'm very secure in myself, and I love my body small. I love it large. I love it medium. Every weight, every ounce of it, I love it. But what I empower people do is to have one language with themselves where they can understand that they can also love themselves through these methods of authenticity or exposure or being straightforward, being genuine. And it's the same thing in the tarot space, right? There's one
Right.
uniform language that we all have, and it comes with sense of self or alignment, right? And alignment is just, it's like a big definition, but for me, alignment is like, are we here? And what is our purpose of being here? And am I living in my purpose? And if I'm doing it, do I feel right while I'm doing
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And so through spirituality, these niches come with tarot is its own niche, right?
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and then I'm also a clairaudient person that can hear spirit, right? Or can hear spiritual messages through audio references, which may be through mediumship, right? Through channeling of those methods, or it may be through song, or it
Yeah.
may be television stuff, or maybe through a sound like I could hear a car somewhere and it's not there, but the car is coming, right?
Mhm.
And how do we inform people of these things in an entertaining and truthful way where they don't
Yeah.
feel like you're stuffing things down their throat? you ask them what they see for themselves. You
Mm,
make it about them, and you make it a communicative space and a collaborative space where they can join you on your journey and learn a thing or two, or create their own journey from the fact that you have one to begin with that you want to share.
yeah.
So I try to do that, and Threads is a perfect place for that. And TikTok as well. But that's like the feel of Threads for me.
Yeah. Someone in the chat said musical tarot sounds amazing, which it absolutely does. I love the way that you've combined those two things. And just to like for a second touch on the threads thing, I just want to say that the only downside is the lack of video and picture, which isn't really a downside. I think that's what makes it great. But the reason why it's a downside is, honey, people don't get to see that body as much as we do on the gram, okay? Because you are serving up hot, spicy tea. Okay, I absolutely love your photos. I love the way you style yourself. I love the way that you
Thank you.
own, your space and like just show yourself and your beauty in like so many different ways. Um, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what that journey has been like for you. Because I know some folks just, I'm a Leo. Some of us just are like naturally gravitate towards a camera or have a general sense of like comfort or confidence when it comes to being seen. But something that comes up a lot for my better witches is challenges around that. And to be clear, even with my like comfort around being seen, I still have my own like limitations and challenges and things that make me nervous and insecurities and things like that I would maybe not want to be seen or would make me feel less confident in a certain space. So it's not like I'm like, whoa, I don't have my own challenges, but for me, it might not be as difficult as it is for maybe some of my clients. But this seems to always come up whenever we start talking about marketing strategy and how we're, getting our practices out there, how we're letting the world know how we can be of service to them. Inevitably, this sort of like fear of being seen comes out, and I think one of the misconceptions before I kind of help them realize that the opposite is the case, is that people who are putting themselves out on social media or are sharing themselves in some type of public forum, that they're natural speakers, that they're naturally confident, that they always felt comfortable in their skin. They always felt comfortable in front of a camera. And I know that to not be true. But I'm wondering, like,
It is not true.
it's not true,
At
right?
least from my perspective, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's what I wanted to know, like, what was your journey like? Like, was there a time where you were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm about to, like, put on this swimsuit and, like, post a picture of myself?" Like, was there a time where that was difficult, and what was your journey like? Or maybe you're still on it, to be able to say, like, "This is me, and I'm going to show up, like, as me."
So being myself has always been difficult because I essentially have always been in a space where everybody else's identity tried to mold mine.
Mm,
I've never been like, I would like say I'm a black sheep type of person, but very minimal. Like, I'm not a rebel. Like, that's what we were referred to, the black sheep as a rebel. I'm not so
right,
rebellious, but
right.
I've always wanted to be on stage, not in front of the camera since I was little. I've always wanted to be like in performance based things and always be seen, but always comfortable in a space where people knew me or I felt comfortable about that. I
Mm,
never wanted to be like, America's Got Talent. Like, no,
right. It's the
I
whole world.
I never want to be public on social media either. I've always taken photos of things and been like into photography, videography, and into multimedia since I was
Mhm.
very young. Always been a writer, always telling stories, always visualizing stories, but never did I ever want people that did not know me to look at me. Like, I was like, no,
Mm.
I'm okay with the school play because I know people here. And then I'm okay with I've always been on social media since the dawn of time, but it was always like sectored to my family and friends. And I like the connectivity of social media and keeping up with each other and being friends, but never for consumption or people to pick me apart. In fact, for most of my life, like professionally, I worked in the media entertainment industry. in PR, public relations, communications, customer service, and event operations. And it's all behind the scene or in support of other people's images and not mine. So, and that's
Right.
because I felt like my image wasn't important, right? I
Mhm.
felt like I could help other people like represent themselves and help departments stand up for people that need to be seen, or craft their images or help them see their potential. But I never thought that I needed to be in front of that. I never even felt secure enough to be in front of that. I'm a plus size woman, and I've always been fat or plus size. I've always been, people did not consider me beautiful growing up. I was picked on all the time. I had crooked teeth. I had cystic acne, which I still struggle with. And when you have things like that, and everybody at school is like, why is she on stage? She's ugly and she's doing this. I was like, well, I'm just going to curl up and I'm still going to create because I like creation. I love media. I love entertainment, but I'm not meant to be seen because I'm ugly, right? Or because
Mm.
I'm fat, or because of these things. And I was picked apart as a child. And even the things I said a lot were controversial, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a blunt person.
Yeah.
And I recognize that sometimes like blunt can be perceived as rude. And I would not be like that. I would just always say what was on my mind. And people would tell me, you can't say that. Who do you think you are? You're like that. Like, you're not even popular. So I really internalized a lot of these things. And what happened was, for me, is I became a mother. And when I became a mother, my body shifted and I was my smallest weight before I got pregnant, but I had become a mother and I felt so gorgeous. Like, the bringing life into my body made me feel the most it's like I woke up or something, and every part of me that I felt was ugly felt suddenly beautiful, because there was this baby that would look at me like I was the best thing possible. Like, and
Mm.
he's, my son is 9 now, and he still looks at me like I'm the best thing that's ever happened to him. And when I was like, oh my God, like, this child looks at me like this, like,
Who am I? Yeah.
so I wanted to start taking a step back in my creativity, and I wanted to pivot in my professional career for motherhood. So I am an
Mhm.
HR professional now, and I work in HR operations. And um, going into that after being in PR and communications is totally different. But I did it for him because I call it my old lady job. I call it like the job I'm going to retire in. But I was
Yeah.
like, I still have this creative bug. What do I do? So I said, you know what? Let me make another Instagram.
Mhm.
Let me do that. And let me flaunt my new motherhood body. Like, let me
Yeah.
go out here and put my
Sometimes that's all you need is a new
yeah,
Instagram to
a
start over.
new Instagram. And
Yeah.
I just put myself up there, and I just didn't say anything. I was styling myself, not as cool as I am now, but I was styling myself. And there was only 400 people over there. And there was
Right.
400 people that knew me. Some people found me, whatever. And I looked at my son and I said, I had a baby. And I was like, I look damn good. I looked
Yeah.
the best I've ever looked after having a baby. I was always curvy, but my body went like this to like this
Boom.
naturally. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like I was like,
Ah.
plus size, who cares? I was like, I was never ugly. I was like, I just had an epiphany. And I put up myself in not a swimsuit, but it was like a bodysuit
Mhm.
with pants on, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, girl, I didn't even know you look like that."
Right.
I was like a
Serve
face up person
tea.
like this, and they were like, "You over there hiding all of that?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" And then that's when body positivity started to take off on Instagram, but I wasn't like a content creator. I was just like myself, just public, right? I was
Right.
like, forget it. Then one day in 2022, I was putting up bathing suit photos at the beach, and I had lost the baby weight, and I looked so bomb. And my best friend took photos of me, and she's like, "These are fire. You should start modeling, doing modeling." And I was like, "Okay, let me be an Instagram model. Let me try this. What do
Yeah.
I have to lose?" And no one cared. I was scared. I got called all types of whales and fat names.
Oh my God.
And And I wasn't even as big as I am now. And I was like, okay. So I was like, you know what? I want to take it down. I was so hurt. And I had imposter syndrome. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what kind of model am I if people don't like what they see me
Mm.
modeling, right? And then 2 weeks later, I got a call before I deleted it from a casting company.
Oh, won't he do it?
And I had 400 followers. And I was so strategic back then. I was just putting hashtag like plus size model, curve model, like these things to get myself into modeling. And I was like, so I got an email and they called me and I'm like, who is this? And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
we love your Instagram. I was like, who? There's nobody looking at me. I
Right.
did look at me. And they said, doesn't matter. We saw it. We love you. So it had worked its way up to a casting agency and they said, we want you to submit yourself natural. No makeup on. My hair was red. Like I'm known for having the hair red braids you see. I'm
Yep.
known for my hair
Mm-hmm.
being like that. As my favorite color. And I was like, who's booking me? And I was so insecure because I had been picked apart on the
Yeah.
internet. And I was like, okay, fine. This is a blessing in disguise. And then I went, and the next thing you know, I did the audition. It was just like questions about me with nothing on. Like you think, like think ghosty. If you ever know modeling, like you having a tank top, pants, no makeup, no
Mm-hmm.
nothing. And I was like, oh, with fluorescent lights. And then they
Mm-hmm.
said, we're gonna send this over to the beauty company, and the beauty company is Dove. And I was like, what? I was like, oh my God. I was
Yeah.
like, Dove, the actual Dove, the
Right. Like
right?
not the bird.
Not like, and they're like, yes, Dove. And then so one day after that, Dove was like, we love you. We want you to be a Dove superstar is the name. I may not be saying it right, but it was like a principal, like one of the main faces of this campaign. And the
Wow.
campaign was a new beauty campaign that was not just about products, but it was about being the face of Dove for the next 4 years. And that was a part of the Crown Act,
Yeah.
which was the Hair Act, for African Americans. Well, not even African American. Well, African
Just
American Black
workplace
males.
hair
Yeah,
discrimination is like what it
workplace hair
was.
discrimination,
Yeah.
and they used me as the face of that. And then there were other things where they partnered with like a fat phobic institution that was supposed to advocate for plus size and larger body rights. And so I was a part of that campaign with them. And then I'm also on like I was like on the homepage in a group shot. I was like, so I'm everywhere. And then
Wow.
that campaign rolls out in 2013. And everyone's like, oh my God, you're doing this. Cause I couldn't say anything because it was an NDA until, like it came out. Couldn't
Yeah.
say anything.
Right. Of
And
course.
so when it came out, people were like, we love this. We love what they're standing for. We love what you mean. And we love how body positive you are. And I never called myself that. I was just myself and I just was like loving my new mom body and I wanted to model and I took a leap of faith because I was really scared and
Mhm.
I got like told I was fat every photo. And it didn't matter because I was being an advocate without being one by existing and by
Right.
saying, and I said this was so hard for me to do, but here I am like this.
Yeah. That story, like, thank you so much for sharing that story. And I hope that you get the opportunity to tell it often. Like, I feel like everybody needs to hear it because there are so many lessons that I think sometimes we can put to the side as being a bit cliche because we do hear them repeated quite often. But it's important to understand that these things become cliche because of how true they are. Like they become annoyingly repeated, but it's because while you may not have seen it in your individual life, listener, watcher, enough people have. And so your story demonstrates, first of all, that your life can change in a day, that planting the seed doesn't tell you when the fruits are going to be ripe, when the tree is going to actually bear fruit. So plant that seed and keep watering it and tending to that garden, even when you can't see the fruit yet. You planted the seed, you used the hashtags, you put the content out there, you said, here we go, I'm going to put this out into the world. And you had no idea that there were these fruits that were percolating under the surface, and within a day you'd go from barren trees to fruit. But your story also teaches the lesson of the importance of showing up regardless of whether or not your audience is there yet. Kind of the like, if you build it, they will come model.
There was a quote that I loved that I used to, that was on my private Instagram that I
Mhm.
still live by. And it was, I found it a random meme. It was like, get up, dress up, show up, and never give
Mhm.
up.
Mm.
And since I was like 22, I lived by that. And
Yeah.
that essentially was my motivation
Mhm.
to do what I do now. So it's exactly what you said.
And so many spiritual practitioners, because that's my wheelhouse, the group of people that I work with the most. But I imagine most of us probably deal with this, where you might be able to overcome the initial hurdle of putting yourself out there, but then there's the question of, okay, I put myself out there, and the response isn't what I expected. It isn't as positive, or it's just not happening at all. And that part is kind of the next part. Like once you get up the guts to be like, I'm going to like do the thing, I'm going to make the video, I'm going to make the post, I'm going to apply for the speaking gig or whatever. I see a lot of folks fall off right after that initial introduction because I'm going live and nobody's watching, or I'm putting posts up and I'm getting 2 likes, I'm getting 3 likes. And I love that even though you were getting negative responses and it impacted you, it hurt you, it made you think maybe I shouldn't do this, that you hung on through it, and kept pushing through, because there was someone who was loving it that was watching it, but they weren't commenting. They weren't making as much noise. So you didn't know that they were in the room. And I think that's such an important thing for people to understand, that oftentimes the loudest people in the room are going to be the detractors, the naysayers, the haters. But that doesn't mean that that's the only people in the room. And even when the room appears empty, that may not actually be the case. Not only might there be other people in the room that you don't realize are watching you, but they might be supporting you and loving the heck, out of what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And also, that's what being led by spirit is as well. So obviously, and I won't pivot this way, but if
Mm.
for me, in everything I do, I am a spiritualist. Um, and it's, as a practitioner, I have my practices, but what's really important is the trust in, a higher power, which is God for me, but trusting in my spirit team, and my ancestors that I am very close knit with. Like like a lot of my, as a practitioner, is ancestral veneration,
Mhm.
and working with my ancestral energy and ancestors in a spiritual way allows me to feel safe, and allows
Mhm.
me to, like, not just yet when I want to delete it. Like something told me not yet, and I
Yeah.
didn't know why, because I was ready to cry. I was ready to
Mhm.
like, oh my God. And then it's because there was this blessing in disguise that was about to come a week later. But had I not done that, because that was the key photo that they wanted me to submit to the brand, right? So that was like a transformative moment, me trusting the guidance that I got, through ancestral veneration, through meditation, through readings. I also get spiritual readings as well, even though I'm a
Mhm.
reader.
Mhm.
Um, and it helps me now, but that was the first moment that I saw like real life and real blessings in that way.
Yeah, I agree, and that's actually one of the things I wanted to ask you about. You been reading my notes? Because that's exactly what I wanted to tell you about. You've been clear reading my notes, because I was like, oh, make sure to ask you about some of your rituals, for
Mhm.
that, for real. Like I literally have it here. I was like, I want to talk about body positivity rituals. I want to talk about how your spiritual practices have contributed to your ability to show up in an authentic way, and to feel comfortable and confident in who you are, whether it's how you look or what you sound like, what you talk like, how you walk, talk. So what are some of the rituals that you can share, that have helped you along the way, or that you would recommend to others who might not be where you are just yet?
Well, the very first ritual I will tell you is movement. Okay.
Mm.
I am in a meditative flow person. So and by what I mean is that is yoga, yes, but it's also dance is meditation for me.
Mhm.
Um, it is a test of my breath. And no one looks at dance this way, but it is this way for me. It's a test of my breath, a test of my mind, a test of my soul, my spirit, and also a test of my physical body. And I use dance as a healing mechanism over the years through some, difficult things. And what guided me to do that was because I was always dancing and I was a dancer since I was a kid. But I didn't recognize, I lost that when I started taking care of a kid, right? I started taking
Mhm.
care of a kid, you forget about everything you did because you want to make sure they're well and everything like that. And I
Right.
started, finding my inner child again. And the way that I found my inner child was through experiences, memories of my grandmother, memories of the time I spent with her, the time I spent with my aunts, the time I spent with my elders, and then, understanding there's a lineage of things like learning where I came from, like, doing an ancestry test and seeing things like that, like, oh, and explaining movements as an African American, which is hard to align with. So that practice became meditative for me. Now it's fun. Now it's just fun, but that was one of my first rituals. And then of course, yoga is I wouldn't say it's a practice I do all the time, but it's definitely something that helps me function through the most difficult things when I'm not feeling comfortable in my own skin. There's nothing to make you feel more comfortable than stretching against your means and telling your body that you can do this and you physically aren't supposed to, because I'm a lot larger than I should be. But yoga is no size discrimination with yoga. It is really mental, but it's also spiritual when you connect to yourself like that. And then my last ritual, of course, well, there's two more. My last one is definitely journaling and writing and scripting. I am a manifester, and manifestation practices there are many practices with this, but my main form of it is scripting and writing. Like I'm looking up, I have a boss up wall. And on my wall, this wall originally started as a planning wall. I had no plans, and then I was given a clairvoyant dream from my spirit team, and my mind was all scattered in that dream. And I woke up like, what was wrong? And then I kept hearing, plan, you need to plan, you need to plan. So I prayed on it and I created a plan on my wall. And then I executed that plan. So think of vision board written out. And then after that, I put a boss up sticker up there, and everything that I'm going to do for my day or whatever is a posted on my wall. And then there's things I want to achieve at the end of the wall. And then I take it off when I get it. So that one as well. And then magically, there's hoodoo, right? And there's like root work. So I am a self-love person. And the first thing I learned about was honey jars, right? But I never thought about doing honey jars for love for others. Like I was like, I see all this information about people doing honey jars for people. I want to do a honey jar for myself. So, I
Oh,
had a mentor, and I found ways to bring magic to life with natural things, plants and herbs. And I use the Bible a lot in my work. So I manifest love over myself. I manifest connection with my beauty. So there's a lot of affirmative work that goes into honey jars with me. Um, and then I have like a very special herbalism thing that I do with oils. I
mhm.
create oils that aid in sort of holistic healing, and they change my mood depending on what goes into that. So these are some things that I do consistently.
Yeah, it sounds like you really lean into your creativity to inspire the rituals that help you the most. And um, many, I feel like a lot of spiritual folks are crafters. We have a creative side to us, or we want to create in some type of way, and just sort of shifting the intention from just I'm dancing, to no, this is actually an intentional practice and I'm engaging and I'm
Mhm.
doing this dance in order to enter into a meditative state, or I'm doing this dance to feel my body, or maybe I'm going to do it in front of the
Mhm.
mirror and look at myself and see myself and get used to seeing myself reflected back at me. So I love that, how you're using your creative side to basically like build rituals and practices that are helping you
Mhm.
with your content creation, your marketing, and putting yourself out there. I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of spiritual practitioners who are also creative. Like, your creativity can be more than just, downtime or like something to do when you're feeling fidgety. It can be an intentional thing that you use to help you actually turn your vision of what you want to have in your life or what you want to be into like an actual thing.
So that's
And yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
Oh, so that's why, I call myself a magician, right? We talked about this when I was first, talking about coming on the show. There's magic in everything I do, regardless of if there's an actual, you know, process for that. I am magical because I set intentions for myself and I create something out of nothing, right?
Right.
I create opportunities for myself that people say that I shouldn't. And I do that by intentionally stating, this is something that I want to align myself with. And if it's purposeful for me, if I'm supposed to do it, then it will occur. And I live in that. I own that. I embody that. I am that. And, not everything you do is going to be intentional. Some things are spontaneous. But for me, I am really intentional when it comes to self care and when it comes to existing in a public space. So I can do that safely and I want to inspire in an authentic way and genuine. Then setting the tone for my day like that is really important as well.
I love that so much. So everybody take notes. Take notes on those various rituals that you can utilize, and get inspired by that. As we're all working through becoming more confident and more comfortable in who we are. I think that's the perfect note to take a quick break on. So we are going to do that right now. So, for all my witches out there, go ahead and grab your teas. This is now the time to refill your mugs and all of that good stuff. And while you all are doing that, I want to talk specifically to my boss witches out there for just a second. If you have a witchy business, product, or service that you want to get in front of the thousands of witches that are downloading this show on podcast platforms or watching it on my YouTube channel, then an ad spot is the best way to do that. Ad spots for season 4 are now open, and you'll be in really great company. We've had ad spots and sponsorship on this show from Llewellyn Books to Red Will Wiser to Force Within. And so you are definitely going to be sharing a really good space if you would like to see your products and services in front of thousands more witches. The Better Witch podcast has been downloaded over 16,000 times so far. Thank you all so much for that love. And just think about it. What would you do with 16,000 new followers, customers, or clients? I want you to get in now while spots are still available, and details are in the description of this video. All right. Welcome back, Mel. Welcome back, everybody. So, we were just talking to Mel Erica about body positivity, spirituality, and creativity. And I feel like that's a wonderful segue into some questions that I had about the creative aspect, because you are a creative. So, you're a spiritual practitioner, but you also sing and you write poetry and you style fashion, and like many creatives, there's no like one box to put you in, like you are just creating. And I
Mhm.
feel that a lot of spiritual practitioners are also creatives in their own way, even if they aren't, if they don't carry that title in a formal way or consider themselves a part of like a greater creative community. I just find that it's not a coincidence that witchcraft has craft in it. Like I feel like magical practitioners are often making things and creating honey jars, like you mentioned, or hoodoo dolls, or little mojos, or charms to wear around themselves. Like we're just generally creating things. And knowing about that overlap between the two interests or the two abilities, I had some questions about that. The first one is, why do you think that is? Why are spiritual folks and creative folks often overlapping? Why are the creatives tending to be more spiritual than religious? More interested in like divine alignment. Like what is the overlap there? Like I don't know if I've ever met a spiritual practitioner that isn't also like, yeah, and I paint. Like there's always like some overlap. Being that you work so much with both communities, what do you think is like the connection between the two?
So, for me, so spirituality is a free form or free range of way to honor higher power, self, and other, you know, divine entities or other, types of energies, whether it's different deities or whatever it is. But it's really in alignment with your connection to a source, right? To God or a higher power, and definitely a connection to your higher self as well. And creativity is a free form of expression. There isn't one way to do it, and there isn't one way, and there's no rule book, right? There's no rule book to spirituality either, because it is tailored to you. It is so specified and to yourself, and it's so personal, right? Religion is personal as well, but religion is a forum to honor a higher power or a highest power with restriction and rules depending on the religion it's in. um, it's a it's like a closed thing, like. And art forms are so vast, right? And there isn't like one way to showcase something. We may try to say the same message, but my message will never look the same as yours.
Mhm.
My spiritual practice will never be the same as yours, where even though we might both know hoodoo, we might both know manifestation, it won't look the same for me and you, because it is specifically tailored to your own. It's like a customization of self with that. And in creativity, it's a customization of yourself, or how you want to represent things that you find cool about yourself or the people or spaces you're around. So
Mhm.
I think that's why it goes together, because I say that too. Like, oh yeah, like, and I also see a lot of creative people leaving religion, and not because they denounce the components of the religion that they were a part of, but they just choose to have a free form or a free range of ways to honor the teachings of either that religion, and how they align with their self with that is what comes up. And for me, that's exactly how I am. I was raised in the church, like the Black church, right?
Mhm.
My late grandmothers were very like church folk
Yeah,
people.
same.
My mother is and my family is raised Christian, right? But me, I never aligned with that. I have a Bible that was passed
Mhm.
down to me from my grandmother, and she gave it to me. And I also spent a lot of time with her in her honoring of Jesus Christ, right? And she chose later on in her life not to honor Jesus in one way. So she was a Christian, but she took from Seventh-day Adventist, she took from
Mhm.
Baptist, she took from, she learned to take from things like in, what is it? I'm blanking, but it was like Methodist church, right?
Mhm.
All churches of like different practices. She honored the Sabbath, which is, not on a Sunday. She honored her Sabbath on a Saturday. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so these are things I grew up around, but I was like, no, thank you. I was like, I always say, me and Jesus, we here.
Yeah, we cool.
Me and Jesus is here. But
Listen,
sometimes,
okay.
Jesus is not, yeah, we here.
Jesus is my homeboy.
Like, he is my homeboy.
Don't get it twisted.
Me and JC, that's what I call him. All
Yeah.
respect to Jesus. He is like me and Jesus is together like that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. But I always felt like there was something else that I wanted to know, and I didn't know why. So I aligned myself with the teachings that I've learned, but I also aligned myself that they're not for me now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? They can help me and they can guide me as they've done my entire life, but they're not all for me. Right?
Right.
There's other information, there's other practices that I'm learning about through research, through ancestral veneration, through my own ancestry, through readings, mediumship readings with other people that I trust, that feels right. And it's the same with my creative work, right? You mentioned, I am a singer. I'm not a professional singer, but I can sing. I can't sing, but I
Right.
can sing, and I do love singing.
Yeah.
And the music is going with gospel, right? Music flows through the Black home, depending on the type of, if you're African American and Southern, right? My mother is Southern. Music flows through the house. Music is a cleaning day with music. Music is, you exist with music. Everything is with song. Like,
Right. Yeah.
so I bring that practice into my life. I have music on all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
spend Saturdays giving time to God, and I'm in prayer, um, with gospel on, but I am not just praying to with the Bible. I'm in prayer in general. I'm praying for open-ended things and not just one way to pray, right? So it's in my work as well. I write poetry and I perform spoken word, and all my poetry is spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
and by spiritual, I mean Mel, the spiritually gifted woman that isn't Christian, the spiritually gifted woman that has controversial gifts that people have deemed as mental illness, but it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
controversial way that I know things about people and I don't know them, but it's true. Like,
Right.
the empathic sensitivity to other people's feelings, but I don't get why, because I don't have a personal connection to you thing. Like, that part of me is real, and that comes from an ancestry that I don't know, that I'm getting to know by using
Right.
these gifts. And it's so controversial because everyone's like, you are not real. Like, this isn't real. And I'm like, it's as real as my platform say it is, right?
Right.
Um, and my poems speak to me as a spiritually gifted woman, right? I just did a poem the other day called 3 a.m. And this
Mm,
poem was
yeah, I
about
saw
a
that.
dream. Oh, you
Mm-hmm.
did? Oh, thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Because, I'm like, I don't know. Because I decided to start putting my poetry out there to perform because I had a misdiagnosis because of my spiritual
Mm-hmm.
gifts. Mental
Yeah.
health is very real and it has been prevalent in my life, but I had a misdiagnosis a couple of years ago that led to harm for myself because they
Mm.
weren't listening to me.
Right.
It's like, you diagnosed me with something, gave me medication, but it didn't work because I'm just spiritually gifted, right?
Right.
There is something else
Right.
going on that I need to be treated for, but it wasn't that. So
Right.
unfortunately, I went through that, and my first piece I wrote was called Misdiagnosed. And it was about how I was somewhere I didn't want to be mentally, and I was harmed through medication, like false medication. And the only thing that kept me sane while I was going insane from wrong meds was my spiritual practice and my spirit guides, right? And I didn't know there was a spirit guide around me. I didn't know any of that back then. It was just like, I remember going to a Bible and I would pick it up and I would read a psalm, and a certain psalm made me feel protected and it made me want to be strong, right? And that was a psalm that was taught to me by my grandmothers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so in that moment I needed strength to stay myself, and I went to the Bible to find out something
Mm-hmm.
that connected me with them, and that was that word. And whether I'm not Christian or not, it was what they were, and
Yeah.
they're connected with me.
Right.
And so from that, I found strength, and then I wound up being fine from that.
Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was going to say all my poems come from a place of me saying, hey, I have controversial things happen to me, but God is here leading this to me. God's giving me this. God is having me say this. So, and I have so many different types of poems, from sexy poems to like protection poems to
Yeah.
like, girlfriend poems.
Mm-hmm.
He broke my heart poems, but they
Mm-hmm.
all are in alignment to what is my purpose? What is God sending for me? How am I recognizing a problem with this? So 3 a.m. was about a mystery man that's always in my dreams that I don't see his face, but we be canoodling.
Right.
And I go out
He's
and
a professional cuddler.
he's a professional. Well, we was doing other stuff in them dreams, but and I was
Okay.
like, how am I doing this with him? And I
Right.
never remember his face. So in the dream, he could be showing me his face, but I wake up not remembering anything he looked like. But I
Mm.
remember it happened. I remember me there, and I remember how his energy feels. So people are like, oh, that's not a good sign. I'm like, it's a fine sign because I don't wake up scared. I
Right,
wake up
right.
like, who is
Like,
this?
okay. Yes.
So
Let me go back to sleep.
So I know I'm spiritually gifted, and I know if I'm dreaming of someone I don't know multiple times like that, most likely that's a sign that something is about to
Someone's
come in my
coming.
life
Yeah.
that's unexpected. Whether we're gonna spicy, I don't know,
Right, right, right. But something's
but
coming.
something's coming, and it's a man that's coming,
Mhm.
and he might have something to do with me romantically. I don't know to what
Yeah.
extent,
Right.
but he might have something to do. So 3 a.m. is always the time that I wake up after
Mhm.
the dream. And that's also the spiritual hour between
Mhm.
3 to 5 a.m. So I'm like, what is this? So I wrote a poem to make sense of what it was. And then I, obviously creativity works. And that's a collide of both worlds. Like
Right.
I have this spiritual practice. I'm spiritually gifted. I'm getting these downloads. I don't know what the hell is going on, but how can I make sense of this? Okay, let me make some art to tell the story of how it looks for me and then see if it reaches someone else and see if they feel something from it. And people
Yeah.
like it. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's like a really beautiful way to illustrate through your own practices how those two things overlap. And I think that's probably true for a lot of folks where we have spiritual experiences that we then need to turn into art.
Mhm.
For me, when I was younger, something that was really interesting that happened was when I was coming out of the closet, which happened kind of at a young age for me. I was like 13 or so. And literally, all I painted were boobs.
Ah!
Just like it was always like naked figures of women, and I would always try to make them really classy and like put like a cloth or like something, but really low key. It was just me like wanting to see boobs, and I was like, well, I live in a very strict Christian household. There's no porn laying around. We're not seeing titties out here. I'm just going to paint them, and because it's clearly like really what I want to see. So I was having this awakening in my own life, and the only way for me to see the things that I was wanting and see the things that I was like becoming interested in was to create it for myself. And so I think a lot of that happens where we have maybe more spiritual experiences that we then express in some type of an artistic way or some type of a creative way. And it kind of goes back to what you said about not being necessarily too niche specific, and embracing being like a multi hyphenate individual, because maybe you're not a professional singer, maybe you're not formally trained, but there's something that you're going through that inspires you to sing and to make song about what it is that you are going through. And I think that your explanation of spirituality and creativity both being free form spaces, I think really nails why creatives and spiritual practitioners often go hand in hand, because there's a freedom in both of those spaces to say like, this is your goal, and that how you get there is how you get there. Whereas in a religious space or a more dogmatic space, a non-creative space, there's a goal and then you're given the steps, and like you
Yeah.
take those steps whether they work for you or not. It's not that important. These are the steps that we take in this path to get to that destination. So I think that's a really beautiful way of describing it, free form.
Yeah, I agree with that because like I said, I never wanted to denounce Christianity, right? I have a Bible, like I said, proud, but the Bible, I don't have it because I want to be reading the Bible. It's because the person that really took her time to raise me, besides my mother, read the Bible, and she stood by it and lived by it. And she
Mhm.
felt that I would need it one day. This was gifted to me when I was 16, 15 or say 15. And she said I would need it. And she just told me, just read it, just keep it, just have it. But she never said you need to read this because
Right.
this is what you're going to be in life. She just said,
Or how to interpret it, like.
where, yeah, she never even told me how to interpret it either, but she did mention she bought this Bible that had annotations in it. So it would guide me through reading it if I didn't understand it. So it was given to me by an ancestor, right? Well, she's no longer with us. Um, and so honoring her practice and honoring what it meant for her and how it helped her life is something I can take on in my life, but understanding that I don't wish to be confined or bound by the laws of religion. I wish to be free, right? I wish to have freedom in my belief system and learn about other spiritual practices that may not be of my heritage if I can get information about them, and just to see the mysticism, like, is this with me? Herbalism, right? That's a whole different thing, right? Did Can I do that? So um it's really funny to say with art as a medium for all of us, but it's a hard to process these things when people tell you they shouldn't make sense when they do.
Absolutely. And there's something that I think Erica Badu says it in front of, like, at the start of, maybe it's Tyrone, but I feel like she's about to perform and she says something like, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit.
Yeah.
And I always really love that because it's so real. And it's like, we don't want to say that. We want to act like, we're all like straight face, like it's fine. But having people judge us is definitely something that can be difficult. And someone that I am currently reading another one of their books, Arlen Hamilton, in her book, I think it's called The Revenue Playbook. She basically explains that when it comes to being afraid of being seen, that it isn't actually being seen that we're afraid of. That what we're really afraid of is that there's something that we care a lot about and that means something to us. And we're kind of afraid that if we put it out there, that other people are not going to care about it as much. It's not going to mean as much to them. Or they might flat out just like not like it. So I want to encourage folks that are watching over on YouTube. If you have questions for Mel, for myself, go ahead and drop those in the chat now. Now's your chance to get your questions in. And one of the many benefits for those of you listening on podcast platforms to subscribing to my YouTube channel is that you get notified about these live tapings. You get a chance to tune in and maybe get your questions answered during the show. But my final question is about this fear, about putting up things that you care about or that matter to you. And I love that you are sharing songs, whether or not you feel like they're like professionally done or anything like that, that you're writing poetry and you're sharing those. And you're sharing things that you are creating in the moment that you're creating them and not being afraid of being like, this needs to be a certain level of perfection, or I have to have this poem edited, or I need to like master this song or something before I can put it out there. You're letting your creativity kind of inform your content. Your content is the creative process. You're sharing these things like almost immediately as you're making them. So for folks out there who are creating but are hiding it, they're not showing their paintings, they're not singing that song, they're not sharing that poem. Where do you feel like their fear is coming from, and how can they maybe overcome that?
So, two things. So, I wrote this today. I said, in today's society, image is everything. But what's becoming more important is not what we see, but it's how we feel when we see it. I said, personal perceptions are shifting, so cultural perceptions can make a comeback. So, that is in alignment with what you just said. So, people feel like, one, they won't be received well or perceived in a good way. So they have imposter syndrome or they self-sabotage because they worry about the outcome instead of what it's meant for and the reason. So understanding your why is what I always say, like understanding why you wanted to do this, why you wanted to create this anyway, and makes it easier to share it When you have purpose behind something or intention, um, then you will worry less. You still might worry, but you'll worry less. And then the other reason is because they feel like they're not supposed to do that, which is about self confidence. And so they need self reassurance. Um, like at your core, you're creating art, but you don't feel like you're meant to be an artist, or you don't feel like you actually are as talented as you say so, right? Which comes from many reasons, but it's self love isn't easy for them, or people told them that they could never be that, or they aren't supposed to look that way. So that will take them away from wanting to share themselves with others because they can't share themselves with themselves. And I think art and creativity is so personal. And when it's so personal, as you said about Erica Badu, we're so sensitive about it. But we have to be kinder to ourselves about our work. And then when we're kinder to ourselves, then we're able to put it out and care less about what others might say.
I agree with that so deeply, and I love the idea of like remembering that you're creating for yourself, and that, and kind of to go back what you were saying about also your ancestors being involved in that process. Like I think about a lot of the things that I get nervous about sharing, um, and remembering that like this is for me and them. Like I just let
Mhm.
the outside world get to look at it, but I'm not making it for the outside world. It's for me. It's so that I can get that idea out of my head. It's so that I can get that song out of my heart. And in many cases, the deep desire to do that in the first place might come from my ancestors not being able to, not
Mhm.
being able to sing out loud,
Yeah.
not being able to dance when they wanted, not being able to paint or have the luxury of an afternoon off. Like, um, that desire to get it out is not just my desire. There's layers to who I'm showing up for when I'm creating. And I think the last thing to think about is like the audience,
Mhm.
right? Like they just get to have a seat at the show, but it's really just you, and the many layers of you, which could be like the layers of yourself, but also like your spiritual layers and your spiritual team. And I
Yeah,
think that's really beautifully put.
yeah, I agree as well. Like, I think of my mother a lot these days. My mother's still alive, but she is, different than she was when I was growing up. She's not well, but she's still alive. So I think of her. My mother was hard to get to know because I have a lot of siblings. I have 10 siblings. So growing up with all of us together is too much. Different versions of her for every kid. And now that I am a mother myself and we are older, I think of her and I learn stuff about her without learning it. And my mother aligned herself with a lot of her own, like who my mother was and who she was seen as was very important to no one other than her. Very much. And she would let you know that, like in a very respectful way. Like you're not about to say who I am because only I can do that. And the big person upstairs, like, a God. And it's not arrogance, it's not ego, it's confidence. And despite her disadvantages with having so many children and whatever, wherever, she was always very kind to others, but she always would let you know that who she was is this and you're lucky you're seeing it. So like and she would be confident in everything she did, and I saw a representation of my mother where she went wherever regardless as a plus size woman, um with limited resources as herself always. And ironically, I grew up scared to be myself. It's like, that fear is something that is instilled in us because of people around us and not from those who care for us. So when you honor your ancestor, your mother, your fourth, like, the elders and things like that, right? You think about them as people. What did they have capabilities to do, right? What was real for them? What was limited? What was limitation? And how can I go in life and say, you know what? I'm struggling right now, but like my mother did not have access to this. And yet she showed up confident in this space. And I have access to this space. And the least I could do is figure out a way how I can show up as myself as she did, right? So things like that.
Yeah, I love that you had that example, that you had someone who was showing up confidently as themselves. And even though your paths may be very different and how that, materialized in your lives spiritually and otherwise might be different, that you were able to see what it looked like for someone to really just be authentically themselves. Because I'm sure that had, such a powerful and positive impression on you. We could talk about this all day long. Of course, I want to be respectful of your time. So before we start to wrap things up, I'm wondering about I know about some of them, but some of the things that you're working on right now, the projects that you've got going on, and where can everyone keep in touch with you and follow along for more insights on spirituality, body positivity, and creativity?
So first I'll start with the handles. So I am on TikTok under Erica's Intuition underscore Erica with a C. It is my middle name, and I do musical tarot over there. I also do live streaming on there as well, and I provide free yes or no questions and spiritual guidance and community-based intuitive fun exercises that we do together. I live stream like once a week, but when you follow me, you'll get a notification if you're on TikTok. Instagram, I am rebuilding my spiritual Instagram, so it's the same handle on Instagram, which will be my musical tarot moved over there with also some horoscopes coming soon. And to YouTube as well, I'm growing that channel under Erica's Intuition underscore to do horoscopes and do celebrity tea spiritually. So yeah, I'm just building these things up as TikTok is coming to maybe a potential close. You never know. So I'm moving into other platforms, but there are about 16,000 people, 15,000 people on TikTok with me that I love. And I wish you would join me over there. For body positivity, it is I am Mel. I am MEL with 3 underscores on Instagram, all about body positivity, dance, and all types of poetry and nice things out there. What was your other question? You just had one more question for me.
I think, are you working on a book? Did I see that?
No.
No.
You've been around, Ali.
I've been creeping through. I've been spying.
You've been around. So I am working on a book, but it's not official. I am a writer and I'm a poet. So I am working on 2 things. I'm working on a book of short stories about my dating experiences in New York City. There are about 11 stories over the past couple of years, and I'm waiting for a publisher to find me. So if you know of a publisher, I don't wish to self-publish this. I want to go big with it. So that's why I've been holding on to it. But it's a book of short stories about
Let's talk.
um,
Let's talk. Yeah, let's talk. I know a few people. I
let's
got some
find
emails.
a publisher.
Yes, because that sounds fascinating. And I'm getting a divorce and I'm stepping into the dating world. So like, let me know if
Yeah.
you want to turn it into an anthology. You need some submissions. 'Cause, girl, I got a couple stories myself.
Well,
It's
listen,
wild in these
it's
streets.
it's creative fiction, nonfiction, but
Yeah,
it's based on true events.
I love that. I'm here
Um,
for
and
it.
and then also I am a spiritual reader, and I do provide spiritual coaching sessions and healing sessions offline as well by phone or in person. So if you're in the New York area, I have a residency at Daya Yoga Studio where I read once a month. And I'll be at Daya Yoga Studio in Ridgewood, Brooklyn area on Sunday, April 27th. Um, and I sell protection oil and so coming soon, love oil, which is on my website. I have to send you my website. But it's in the link in the bio on my TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, you can book me if you want a reading or to buy products.
I
But
love that. And I love that you're in the New York area.
yeah, I am.
Mhm.
Last thing is I will be performing poetry in Los Angeles on June 6th and June 7th as a part of the body positive plus size fashion house and community event space Crusade of Curves. So if you're into activism, fashion, modeling, clothing, poetry, art, it's a big traveling fashion group of people that align others and connect communities like that I'll be performing in LA.
I love that. Break a leg. It's going to be a fabulous show. If you're in LA, definitely make sure to catch that. And I know that the schedules are tight, but with you being in New York, we definitely have to link up
Yeah.
sometime soon. Hopefully, you can maybe come our next spiritual small business networking mixer. I throw them every 2 months here at my co-working space, Which Work. And the next one will be the last Friday in May.
Okay.
And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're going to be
Mhm.
focusing on mental health. Our featured speaker is actually a therapist who is a member here. Uses our space for her some of her in-person clients. And she'll be talking about self-care and avoiding burnout as a spiritual practitioner, as a solo entrepreneur. And we usually have, some wine and some light bites and things like that. And it's a good time. So I'll definitely try to remember to email you that info. But for
Okay.
those of you that are curious, just follow at BronxWitch HQ. That's WitchWorks handle at the present moment. And you'll be able to see posts about that as we get closer to the date of. But yeah, we definitely have to link up. I love what you're doing, and I want to thank you so much for being on the show today, for sharing all of these insights, and for making the world a more like just positive and accepting places for those of us with gifts and talents that really the world needs. So I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was fun, everybody.
Yes, absolutely. We will catch you soon. All right. Thank you, witches, for tuning in to another episode of the Better Witch podcast. I've been your host, Ali Kravitz. For spiritual business tips, you can follow me on Instagram and Threads at BronxWitch. And you can find links to my classes, coaching programs, and more in the description of this episode. Remember, witches, when we know better, we witch better. See you in the next one. Blessed be.